Welcome back to the table, friends. I'm your humble host, GrayDMs, and with me, as always, is my co-host and co-conspirator, Owen.
That's me.
You are listening to Tabletop by Night, a weekly podcast where we continue our exploration of Vampire the Masquerade. Tonight, we gather around the table to answer the question, are you going to live on your knees or die on your feet?
Why not both?
So today, we're going to tackle a clan that has been brought up a lot in a couple of the past episodes. So some of this may be familiar territory, but of course, along with the spirit of the clan, we will not bend to any outward ideals. We will forge our own paths and we will reuse everything we can.
I don't care how reasonable it sounds. That's not what I'm here to do.
Damn it, I have opinions. So today we're going to be talking about the Brujah, also known as the Learned Clan.
The Learned Clan.
Warrior scholars, philosophers, punks, rebels, rabble, zealots, agitators, and Troilites, at least by the true Brujah.
I see.
So, who are the Brujah?
I don't know. That's what we're here to find out.
Yep. So, as we always do, let's go back to the beginning. We'll look back into the myth of the Brujah. So, the Brujah antediluvian, sometimes referred to as Elise, or Troil the Elder, is the antediluvian grandchild of Cain, basically. So, much like the other antediluvians, this was a third-generation vampire that was embraced by the children of Cain. We'll just call them Brujah for now because they're often referred to as Brujah.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. Many say that their sire was Irad. However, the Tumultuous seem to think that Brujah was embraced by Enoch. So basically, if that really matters for anybody.
For those taking notes.
Yeah. But basically, in the second city, Brujah had a reputation for being cold and passionless.
Passionless, yeah.
Passionless?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Passionless would be like,
list.
yeah, listless.
Maybe. Passionless. They embraced a fiery youth named Troil. As you remember, that name came up before.
Yeah.
So there's not a firm consensus on whether Troil was male or female. However, they do kind of generally agree that over the many months that the child or sire relationship existed, Troil basically became very trusted in Brujah, like basically one of the few people that was not just tolerated by some desired to be around by Brujah. Perhaps even sharing love between the two of them.
How nice.
However, the embrace of Troil was a direct violation of Cain's dictum because they didn't want more vampires to be embraced.
Gotcha.
So, ultimately, due to a tragic misunderstanding, Troil believed Brujah had actually intended to destroy them because of this.
Oh.
And thus led the uprising of the fourth generation on the third and slew their sire, taking place at the head of the clan. So, Troil is not officially an antediluvian, but they are the founder.
But they ate one.
Clan. Yeah. Joined many of the usurpers.
Could you imagine though that like after the diablerie that happened there and they're just like, I have all your memories and thoughts and oh shit, this was all just a big misunderstanding. Crap.
Yeah.
My bad. It's the first recorded use of my bad.
Yeah. So as you can kind of see, the Brujah started off with a bang. Being basically their first mark on vampiric history to be essentially a usurping.
Right. I mean, it fits.
Wonder if that's a theme.
That couldn't happen again, could it?
So there is a notion of the true Brujah, which is essentially people that claim to be a bloodline of the clan that came from Brujah, not Troil. However, there's no record of Brujah embracing anybody besides Troil, so there's a lot of kind of like skepticism. In one of the, I think, published modules, Brujah came back and said that they did not embrace anybody but Troil. In other ones...
So, I mean, does that make everybody else a fake?
In that one it would, yeah. So, it's kind of funny because there's another clan that plays with that idea. But anyway... Most modern day Brujah, or pretty much all Brujah throughout like recorded history, are essentially descendants of Troil. So what is the first big thing that we need to talk about with the Brujah, as we've talked about twice already? Carthage.
It seems weird we keep coming back to Carthage. It's almost like this, like a lot of clans, at least like the big clans, like participated in this or had something to do with it.
It was a big event. Even to this day, Brujah still draw inspiration from the legends of the great scholars and philosophers of Carthage. Of course, other kindred, as we know, including the Venture, tend to tell stories that Carthage was a land of indulgence and basically predatory practices.
Sounds nice.
It could be, depending on what clan you are, I guess. But the Brujah basically believe in the purity of their like philosophical endeavor of creating this idyllic, society with humans. One thing that is known is that one of the big downsides, or one of the big falling points of Carthage, was when one of its champions, Troil themselves, essentially the founder of the clan, basically colluded with a Bali Methuselah named Moloch. The Bali are basically a sect of vampires that worship demons.
Oh.
Possessed by demons, maybe.
That sounds like a good time.
Yeah. Carthage's prince at the time, a coward and a weakling named Himilcar the Pale, utterly failed to keep these forces in check, and as a result, his rulership became all but nominal in the final years of the Carthaginian Empire. So, as the Brujah were, basically living it up in Carthage, the Venture of Rome decided that this was not something that they could suffer. And as Moloch drew Troil into desensitization and degeneration, basically news of the intrinsically immoral and debaucherous kind of lifestyle that was being lived in Carthage basically spread, and essentially another character who we know, Helena of Troy, the Toreador, decided to betray her Carthaginian compatriots, and Carthage was ultimately overturned.
Do you think she regrets it?
Do I think she regrets it? I think she has been hounded ever since, and we'll go into her hounder later. So she may, yes.
Maybe a little.
Maybe to this day, she's still looking over her shoulder for what happened. So obviously Carthage fell to the Venture. The Brujah did not go down without a fight. There were many clans actually involved, including Malkavians and the Gangrel. Even the Lasombra basically were likely to help out the sacking, the opposition, or the sacking side. And ultimately, it is said that Troil and Moloch are basically caught in an eternal struggle, and they were essentially put into the ground beneath the Carthaginian soils, and then basically the soil was salted so that nothing will ever grow there.
Oh.
So, hey, if you have some Sabbat who want to get some elder blood, some super duper elder, some of the best choice elder blood, might be tainted with a little demon.
Yeah. And I mean, like, maybe don't dig them up. Just leave them there. Yeah. It's probably for the best.
Probably, honestly. And as throughout history now, the Brujah basically have like a kind of kill on sight rule with the Bali now. But of course,
understandable.
The Bali tend to be kind of a universal enemy. So
they're not well liked like those Setites.
We'll get to them later. So basically, with the fall of Carthage, the Brujah basically started filling out roles of being generals and foot soldiers and various clans. But ultimately, kind of their core spirit was a little broken. During the Dark Ages, they were still considered, at least to the greater Camarilla, as part of the high clans. So they were a clan of warrior scholars noted for their fierce devotion to radical philosophies. So they basically saw them as the inheritors of like the Greek philosophical spirit of like perfecting oneself in both body and mind. The basically total mental and physical discipline. And so they would often train themselves in combat and the classics. So they would learn, Latin and Greek.
Makes sense.
And basically brush up on all the, intellectual curiosities that one who basically can live forever can afford to learn. Just so that you can meet with others and go, whoa, actually, you see.
So they just kind of want to be like the all-comer. Like they're good at a little bit of everything.
Yeah, but it's less that they're good at and more like they can argue.
Gotcha.
They want to be right. Brujah, more than anything else, whether it's true or not, wants to be right.
My dad's a Brujah.
I think a lot of people know Brujah. However, the Renaissance also proved to be one of the turning points in the history of the clan when division between the various ideological strains within the clan exploded to heavy infighting. Basically, that continued.
They can't all be right.
Literally. So you have a bunch of people in a room who have very strong opinions. If you take away any common ground and leave them to their own devices, they fracture immediately.
Yeah.
So during the Victorian age, the clan was divided into those few who lived to basically true to the legacy as the learned clan, but also started basically the others that were descending into troublemakers and criminals, pirates, brigands, mercenaries. Brujah tend to be quite potent when they have an ideal or just a cause. So they don't
just a hankering.
It's like, oh, let's go. I got an ideal. I gotta go pick a fight. So yeah, throughout history, basically, they have been revolutionaries and political activists.
I just love that thought in their mind where it's just like somewhere, someone disagrees with me. I'm going to find them and we're going to fight about it.
Go punch them in their face as hard as possible. So in the modern 20th century, basically the Brujah's clan existence is marked by a sequence of failed projects, unfortunately. Two of the most daring projects that basically they undertook, maybe or maybe not organized, one we already talked about was the Anarch Free States. And the second one was the Brujah Council. So the Brujah Council was actually a formation of an institute of vampires who were, lo and behold, in Russia. And they thought, hey, these rich nobles, they got too much going on. Yeah.
Wait, did this happen sometime after World War I?
You figured. Brujah were like, oh man, we got to rally behind these people who have these great ideas. This is great. So basically, yeah, they essentially they pushed the populace into revolution in the fall of the Tsarist regime.
So what was Rasputin?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't see him mentioned over here. He might have just been like a mage. Because he was crazy, so true. Who knows?
I mean, they shot him. They fed him poison.
Yep.
And he said, I'd like more of that. And then they shot him. And he said, you shot me. They stabbed him.
A bunch of times. Apparently they cut off his junk and threw him in a river.
Right.
Like,
God. Okay. Anyway.
So, yeah. Yeah, basically, so the Brujah basically came together and they formed essentially a ruling council in Russia. And they tried to organize things and tried to control things from the kind of the shadows a bit. But because they're Brujah, they basically never agreed to control the Soviet leaders. They were just like, we're just going to basically make sure that they're kind of heading in the right direction, which of course meant that everything kind of fell apart. The Soviet autocracy would eventually evolve into its own. They're hoping that everything would evolve into its own like perfect socialist state, and they didn't want to get in the way of natural evolution.
Okay, yeah.
So they basically sat by and let this happen as the world marched itself towards the brink of nuclear Armageddon.
I want to know which one of them was like, this Stalin guy, I really like what he's saying.
So the council also never really identified itself as an anarch enterprise because they're basically like, so they didn't really want to claim attachment to any political ideology, even though there was a lot of basically kind of implied bigotry against non-Brujah. So it's kind of a rough time for other people to be in Russia. It's kind of one of the reasons why, like towards the fall, like the Venture went in and started making a bunch of money. But so far, the Camarilla was concerned the Soviet Union and satellite states were essentially anarch-free states in everything but name. So for its own part, the Brujah Council certainly considered itself ideologically allied with the anarch movement, but would basically spend several decades seeking to support Marxist revolution around the globe. So guess what happened to the Brujah Council?
I mean, surprise me. I mean, it can't be something normal, right?
No, Baba Yaga woke up and ate it.
Looking John Wick coming up in here.
So yeah, in the 1990, Baba Yaga basically emerged from slumber and was like, I'm going to erase that.
She still have her chicken leg house?
Well, of course. She flew over on was some kind of a crooked branch or something, and then everything she passed over, all the milk turned sour. There's all kinds of weird stuff about Baba Yaga. I just love that.
Where was she hanging out during all of this?
Well, we actually briefly talked about it, where that she slumbered for like thousands of years.
Yeah,
because she's Nosferatu, and basically she at some point made her way up to like the Western Europe, got into some scrapes with some people, and basically found some sort of haven to like slumber the years away. And then she popped up in the 1990s and was like, "Whoa. It's cute. Look at all the little college kids pretending to be Marxists. I'm going to eat you all right now." I think we brought up the whole concept of like, oh, well, all these elders that sleep for so long and thin their blood and they wake up and, oh, they're not that powerful, right? It's like, no, they just start eating each other. They get up to power pretty quick.
It's just like, yeah, relatively they're not that powerful compared to what they were before they went to sleep. But compared to the 12th gen, whatever, they're still monsters.
Guys sitting around going like, oh man, we got pretty close this time, but let's just push them a little bit farther to the left. Yeah. So otherwise, the Brujah basically made their exodus from the Camarilla after, the events of I remember. We went over it a few times. It's when Theobald basically took a shotgun to Hartstad the Younger, after he found out that after the Second Inquisition, the Camarilla were basically feeding anarchs to the Inquisition.
Yep.
Yeah. So
don't look at me. Look at this guy I just bit.
Pretty much. So they made their exit from the Camarilla, and now they're basically exclusively attached to the anarchs or the Sabbat.
I feel like I was going to say, I feel like the Sabbat would be such a better place for them, but at the same time, like religious zealotry doesn't feel like it. It seems like that's theology doesn't fit them. They're more of the, the learned scholar.
Right. So one of the problems with the Sabbat specifically is that there are a lot of Brujah involved in the Sabbat, because Brujah, along with occasional gangrel and stuff, are like basically some of the choice fodder for the Sabbat to feel, because they embrace someone, don't even tell them what they are, and they basically kick them into
point them in a direction.
And the Brujah are nothing if not effective in that way. So basically, Brujah and Titribu are known as brutes or rabble rousers. They have the same disciplines as their normal effect. They're not that different from Camarilla or now Anarch Brujah, but they are basically the ultimate degeneration of the Brujah ideal, because they're basically completely violent, often relegated to basically Sabbat cannon fodder against the frontline fighters. They were the first clan to rebel against the elders during the Anarch Revolt and see themselves as its founders, despite insistence from the side of the Sombra and Tremice. So basically, when they do stick around long enough, they start thinking they're like, "Oh, we're like the core of the Sabbat," but which has never been in the truth. They basically also see these giant upsurges in membership because the Brujah tend to embrace a little bit too much.
We're going out drinking. Yeah. How come more of you came back than left?
Something's wrong here. So speaking of which, let's talk about the culture of the Brujah, what makes, kind of Brujah a Brujah. So the Brujah of old followed the Olympian ideal, also known as entelechy, which predated even Carthage. So basically, this was an ideal of the perfection of body and mind. So this was kind of the great philosopher's kind of chosen path of basically honing your body and your physical nature along with your spiritual nature and your mental nature. So the ancient Brujah philosopher Heraclitus basically placed fire as the ideal that kept the world in motion and enabled protection even within the stasis that filled the greater universe. As seasons turned and life followed death, perfection was released. He also postulated that the rage and the passion of the Brujah was the result of this fire, and it was the duty of the clan to enable change and therefore perfection.
Deep thinker, that guy.
That's true. A lot of Brujah basically keep this Olympian ideal. So essentially anything a Brujah does, they do with passion, which is both their curse and their blessing. When a Brujah adopts passions and causes, which they support with volume and vitriol. So basically they're like, I don't know why, but now I like this thing and I'm going to like it. And
they're a bunch of Tumblr princesses.
Yeah. Yeah. They are kind of like the woke mob that's just
Right.
like, oh, damn it, no. I just found out that this person 18 years ago kicked a puppy. We all need to go burn that person's house down. That's pretty much there.
There is no gray in my life.
Many Brujah are glad to have the opportunity to speak their minds, which they indulge in a bit of destruction afterwards to illustrate their points. As divided as the clan is, they all do work. They all work against each other. As divided as the clan is, all work against each other in some way, and even when some rivalries within are embittered than in any other clan, they still keep together. That's a weird sentence.
Like I'm thinking what it's getting at is crabs in a bucket.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like they all get clumped together, and anytime one of them's trying to get out or whatever, they all kind of drag them back down. So it's just this constant battle that's going on all the time.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. That's probably more the reality of what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole point that they're actually getting against is that basically Brujah like to fight other Brujah because they all have individual opinions. But the only thing that they don't like, the only thing they like more than fighting other Brujah is someone who's
other people that have different opinions.
Because it's like, well, hey, fuck you and your opinion. Oh, that guy said some shit. Well, we'll both fuck him.
And then when we're done, you and I are going to have words.
Yeah. The proverb that they were trying to get to was I against my brother and I against my cousin, and my cousins and I against strangers.
That's great.
So if any kindred not of the blood would oppose a Brujah, they would face the wrath of the whole clan, as even idealists would defend iconoclast in front of the prince, and each iconoclast is more than ready to beat someone up who humiliated a clan member within Elysium.
It's kind of like that whole The Watchmen. So like, everybody's fighting each other, everybody's pissed at each other. At the end, aliens show up, and they're all like, we all have to fight the alien. It's just like they all dropped what they were arguing with each other about just because they have the one threat, but in their minds, it's like, your opinion is the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. It has to be the understanding of every single Camarilla prince that the one thing you do not is give the Brujah a unified, the ideal to champion. Like right off the bat, you need to have an, Brujah if you can, like on your payroll, like a primogen or something, just so the clan does not unite. Because they may hate that guy, and like then they can start fighting amongst themselves. But if you take that guy off the payroll and there's no one they see except for you, you're doomed.
That's also a really good chance for Ventru to kind of have the Judas goat Brujah, to just go in there and be like, hey, I'm going to fill your head with a bunch of really fucked up shit that the other guy is doing that I don't like. And then you're going to go in there, you're going to get everybody to go fuck him up.
Yeah, that's Theo Bell. Unfortunately, that ended with the shotgun. There are two conventions that the clan does support universally, which are the rant and the rave.
Sounds right.
Rants are just that. They're basically informal meetings of Brujah, which anyone can scream loudly enough to have an opinion gets heard.
So it's a Republican convention.
Pretty much. Take a guess what the rave is.
I don't know. It's just a big fight.
It's just a rave.
Oh, it's just a rave.
It's a techno party where dancing.
I mean, it makes sense.
It's just all night techno dances that started in England and are social gatherings in the guise of a huge scale musical or entertainment event.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you've got a lot of these people who have roots out of Russia and stuff, and it's just like, yeah, here you go. Let's go to the disco.
What? Hey, what'd you say?
That guy says he doesn't like my shoes. I will kill you for your opinion.
Just a bunch of people beating each other. Just the DJ's just like, yeah, this is what it is. And then they all just get back up and start dancing.
I love this song. I disagree. Kill him.
Okay, so what disciplines would you absolutely want this clan not to have?
Stuff that makes them really hard to kill, and stuff that makes it really easy for them to kill people.
Oh, yeah. Well, how about let's make them super fast, super strong, and have the ability of a magnetic personality so no one wants to fight them. I love the Brujah so bad.
That's funny.
Yeah, they're basically built as shock troops.
Yeah.
I mean, the one kind of downside is basically, although they get access to celerity, potence, and presence, they don't really get resilience because if they would just be tanks at that point.
Yeah.
But like basically presence because they're going to be able to control their magnetic personalities. And then as soon as they get control, and if you dare disagree with them, celerity to move fast as fuck and potence to punch your face off.
Yeah. I mean, you got to figure presence would make it, not only is it like a magnetic personality, but you can also at the same time increase the appearance of your ferocity.
Oh yeah. So as we kind of, when we went through presence, there's like daunt, which is basically to just heighten your intimidation, to basically make people like want to avoid you because you're just so intimidating. So that's when you give off that like biker gang scowl and people are like, oh, we better get out of here. So it should be pretty simple to figure out what the clan's bane is, which is a violent temper.
No way.
Well, go figure. They're quick to anger and always passionate modern knights. They've been regaining their position as a clan of lofty philosophers and activists, and are often pointed as a clan of unruly rebels and roughnecks that should not be messed with. So basically, anything that they do to resist frenzy is made difficult because they're just Brujah.
It's funny. They are the extremes at both ends of the spectrum.
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, that's really loud, obnoxious people with very strong opinions.
Like I said, it's just, I really got to think about what Carthage was. It was just a bunch of people like walking around in like, Greek togas, and they're like, today I want to talk about what is the nature of humanity and the nature of our role in the universe. Someone's like, fuck you, Fred.
Oh, God. So when you find out all the great philosophers are just Brujah that got into like punching fights. It's like there was no real great debate. It was just the last one standing.
Seriously, almost every philosopher, like the history of Greek philosophy comes down to a Brujah, like at some point. So their compulsion, which is basically like the need that, that drives the clan, or the kind of the fault that if they start like, anyway, the clan compulsion is rebellion. Go figure. The vampire takes a stand against whatever or whoever they see as the status quo in that situation, whether that's their leader, a viewpoint expressed by a potential vessel, or just the task they were supposed to do at the moment.
Hey, the dishes need to be cleaned. I refuse!
Some Brujahs are also like every teenager.
Yeah.
Just like, I learned to have opinions about things. I want to fight you, and I'm not doing the dishes.
I disagree with stuff, and I feel ways about things, okay?
So obviously, with all this, it should be pretty much assumed that the Brujah embraces they're kind of infamous for ignoring the tradition of progeny. So basically, and consequently, like they embrace whomever they feel like, whenever they feel like it. So that's why like most of the Caitiff are all
yeah, because there's just a lot of low generation people just biting other people.
Quite easily, a Brujah can go into a bar, get drunk, punch someone, that person punches them back, they knock them in a coma, and they're like, you were cool. And they walk off.
They just leave you, not even telling you.
You just wake up and you're like, what the hell happened to me last night? Why don't I have a pulse?
Man, is it morning already? I gotta get home.
Yeah, like I said, we talked about them a lot in the previous, like especially in the Anarch. So that's a pretty good overview of the Brujah. We'll end it with just a few notable Brujahs, famous Brujah throughout the years that I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
So Troil, go figure, being the head of the Brujah clan, did embrace a few childe.
Okay. I mean, really?
Go figure, right?
Imagine.
Otherwise, there wouldn't be a clan.
I know.
One of them left a very strong mark on Roman culture.
Oh.
So much that Roman parents would even frighten their children by telling them Hannibal ante portas, or Hannibal's at the gate.
Okay.
So yeah, Hannibal was a legendary Brujah warlord. Rumors persist that he was embraced by the Brujah Methuselah Troil in Carthage, but it remains unknown if he actually survived the destruction of the city. Interestingly enough, this is going to be a rough name. Guillaume, maybe? Guillaume?
Okay.
Guillemot? I don't know. He basically is an Incanu prince of Switzerland.
Okay.
And also, by extension, Liechtenstein. So Inkanu are basically the vampires that choose to not join any sect. They kind of basically, they're not anarchs or anything like that. They basically stop from participating in the events. They also try to find a path that brings them back to humanity. And he is rumored to be one of the few vampires to obtain the state of Golconda.
Oh, wow. I know a guy that tried that once.
Little tip, Ventru, not so much Golconda. Brujah, still would be pretty hard. I don't think it would ever... At least then they just have an internal like, oh, I want to punch you so bad. Ooh, nope, not going to do it.
How come every time you get in an argument, you walk away, we just hear crashing? Well, that's because I go see my punching rock. That's what got me to Golconda.
Me and my punching rock have a really long history together. And of course, one of the more famous ones too, which we brought up before, was Menelae, originally known as King Menelaus, a powerful Brujah Methuselah of the 4th generation who lies in torpor somewhere in the area of Chicago during the final nights.
That's frightening.
So Menelae was actually, legend was embraced by Troil when she basically traveled to see the world after the destruction of the second city. So legend says that she found a scholar king of Sparta. She thought he was very, fascinating. So basically at the end of the night, Troil took Menelaus to her haven north of the city, where they spent the next several months deep in conversation. And finally, Troil decided that Menelaus possessed all the elements required to make him worthy of immortality. So thus he became embraced by Troil into the Brujah.
See, I mean, that makes sense at that point, because it's just like you have a conversation with somebody and like they spent months having the conversation before she decided, hey, this is a guy worthy of it. But now it's just like, hey, that guy's got a punchable face. I'm going to bite him.
Well, also keep in mind that after spending all this time considering him worthy, he went back to basically his betrothed wife, Helena, and when she ran away with the guy, he basically decided to hunt her down to the ends of the world. His rage caused Pompeii to erupt, and he basically followed her all the way to the old world, including basically hunting her through both like the Spanish conquistadors conquering of the world, up until the point where he's still in Chicago looking for her.
Okay, so he's got a few holdups, all right, but... I mean, you can't hold it against that guy. I mean, everybody's had their heart broke.
Yeah. It's been the next 2,000 years ripping people apart. Interestingly enough, though, in modern lore, they say, which basically Vampire 5th edition introduced the beckoning, when the elders of a certain generation were beckoned back towards like the Holy Land to basically fight or defend their sires against the Sabbat. Basically, he was... because of his generation, he was essentially drawn back to the Holy Land during the beckoning, and his childe, Critias, actually felt the blood bond snap, which basically everybody means that he met his final death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So what could kill a freaking fifth generation Brujah?
Well, a lot of lower generations or... 3rd generation.
Something really freaking scary. That's all I'm saying. My question is, what happens when that thing runs out of the elders to eat?
God.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? 6th edition.
True. So, what do you think of the Brujah? Do you think...
I mean, they're interesting. You have a lot of different play styles with them. You have a lot of things you can focus on. It just really depends on how you want to play a character.
Yeah, I think they lend themselves to both basically the worst player at the table and the best. Like, because you can easily go down like, well, I'm going to punch people and be angry.
I'm just being a Brujah.
This is what we do with rebel rousers. But you can also have the person who's just like, I can't stand with this. Seriously, like, we have to do something about this. I'm driven to do something about this. And not to mention that, if you're a Brujah and like you find some injustice, the easiest way to get a bunch of people right behind you is just to tell other Brujah.
I mean, they're basically, for better or worse, paladins.
Yeah, kind of. That's probably one of the reasons why I kind of initially kind of liked them so much, is that they're essentially just like the violent,
charismatic, oath-bound, whatever you want to call it.
Like, I have opinions and you're going to hear them one way or another.
My goddess wants me to smite you. Who's your goddess? This club. This club is nicknamed My Goddess, and I'm going to hit you with it.
She's got opinions.
I'm going to smack you down with my opinions. What's that? My opinions.
Nice. Well, yeah, I think between this and the Anarch discussion, I think we have all we need to know about the Brujah. If you
Probably the most highly covered of everything we've done so far.
If you haven't figured out who they are by now, we've just failed. So, all right, guys. Well, I guess that's where we'll leave it. Hopefully, we'll see you guys in next session when we talk about something maybe a little bit more interesting than the Brujah.
Kind of crazy.